You're welcome back to the Young Leading Leadership. This time it's just going to be me. I've been in deep talk lately about the topic of the creative mind. The creative mind. And I started getting this thought a long time ago, but I really wanted to understand it well before I could speak about it. And so I would start with a story and then I would go straight up. So I got a bicycle, and then the bicycle had a slight issue when I got the bicycle. So I took it back to the woman where I bought the bicycle from. So when I got there to return the bicycle, she told me, oh, okay, I will call the other man to come fix it. So I was wondering when I wouldn't take time again. So I I wanted to tell the woman, okay, I want my money back. Just give my money back. I don't want the bicycle anymore. So she didn't really give thought to it. So I didn't really want to talk about it. I just kept quiet. So I was waiting. So this young man who stood beside the woman, and the man said, I was going to fix it. And the woman was saying, the owner of the bicycle said, no, just let's go call the other person to come fix it. And the man said, I'm not a child, I can't fix it. So I said, okay, no problem. If that's what they want to do it, I don't want to do it, no problem. So I just waited, and I was looking at the man while he was doing it, and you know, he doesn't know anything about bicycle, but he was just trying to do it. So he was trying to do it, he was just trying, and then all and on, and then eventually did it, and the bicycle became well, and it was working well. And right there I was thinking, the woman said, let's go call the expertise to come do it. And I was wondering that what made this man think he could actually do this? Because I was thinking about it. He doesn't know anything about what's the name? Bicycle. But he told the man that he could actually fix the bicycle. And this man eventually fixed the bicycle. Now this is why I go from what? From there. This is why I got. Okay. Let me check something. Okay. Come in. Yeah, thanks guys for joining. Okay. Very good. Okay, so this is what I got. I discovered that in every human being there's this creative nature in them. Every human wants to create something. And the problem we have with people wanting to create is the fact that they don't know how. So sometimes the issue is not the fact that people don't have the capacity to do things. It is actually about the how. So challenges we have as young leaders and people, most especially I would say geographically in West Africa, is the fact that we don't understand the nature of how to get things that we can conceive in our minds. So when we think of something, we do not know how to go about it. But then these thoughts are very big, and that's actually a creative nature within man. It's something that has been with man. It's the brain, the mind, and the brain comes with the mind. So the brain is not a tangible entity that can be felt. So it's indwelling in the mind. It's indwelling in the brain rather. So everybody has it. So I'm going to try and make this clear. So many of the times we talk about the spiritual point of view about the power within man, and we're not really giving reference to the fact that the mind is very, very powerful. As powerful as the spiritual realm will be, we can actually compare it. It's a different realm. So, but we can actually say that the mind also has power. Now, let's put it this way: every human is endowed with power, but the level of power is always dominant at the very beginning. But the right exposure is what really, right exposure of the mind is that exercises, that wakes the power within, is what rises the capacity and ability of the man to create. This means that, now this is it, the mind has power, but now the right exposure is what really opens the mind and awakens the capacity of the mind to really create. So people think of things, and you're wondering, how can I do this? I cannot do this. That is because of inside every man there's this longing to do something. And I would say that the right exposure is the very beginning of awakening the creative power within man. Now, what do I mean by right exposure? So let's put it this way. Now, everybody is distinct with their mind, so they are responsible for how your mind wants to create. You're responsible for what your mind wants to create. So, we cannot compare someone whose mind is focused and attention is on, let's say, food. Now, this person begins to think of great enterprises they want to create because of what they see themselves as great cook, and they begin to think of things that they want to do to make their cook industry very, very big. Now, that's a creative nature. It's just that those inventions are not like just global inventions that we think of, but the truth is this: they are still creative nature within man. Now, what do I mean by right exposure? That is the knowledge that is necessary for actually opening up the mind to actually learn what he needs to actually learn in order to create what is needed to create. So the mind needs a stimulus, yes, something to stimulate it. Because the truth is this: everybody's mind has power, but somehow it is dormant. Now, what raises the power of the mind, the creative power of the mind, is actually knowledge. So I made a research to Elon Musk, that's one of the richest man in the world right now, and I discovered that he studied economics. Yeah, he studied economics, and I was wondering how on earth was he able to really get about building a rocket. Now that's where the question comes in. He read books. So now one of the things he said, which I read, one of the biography which I read about him was that he would read a lot of books. When he reads a whole lot of books, he would go read, and then go and then put those things into practice. So it means that those knowledge actually stimulated his mind and made his mind think that it was impossible for anything to actually happen. And I think that's what we really need to understand about our brain. Is actually the most beautiful gift that we were ever born with, and that it's, I'm trying to actually make it easy. Sometimes we'll give it too much preference to the spiritual because of it's something that we cannot see, and it is easy to really be to really do that because of it's spiritual. But now to go deeper is what it really takes effort. But I believe that the mind is very powerful, and in it has the creative nature of man that can actually create whatever thing we actually want in life. It can create. But now, I'm trying to make this very realistic, so people don't think that but why is it that Africa and West Africa were not really? So I believe this is really for most West Africa young ladies. So this is it. We cannot create inventions or invent anything if we are not open to the right exposure. So that means if your mind is not stimulated or illuminated with the accurate knowledge that is needed to actually stimulate that mind to think at the frequency at which it's able to really conceive ideas, and not just conceive ideas, at the same time put those ideas into action. Now I wrote this here. What resists the mind from creating is avoiding the process that leads to opening of the mind. So many times we see the airplane. Now, years back, people said it was never possible to actually create a plane. How was it possible to make something fly over? Well, now this was conceived by a man. Now, how did it come into reality? Because of the possibility of the mind, the power of the mind, the fact that the mind believes what he can create. It believes in what he can create. So every human has that nature in them that they always want to create. They always want to create. I have never seen any man, even a madman, that's what they say, and mental illness. If it's someone who is mentally ill, you ask them. You see some of them play, and they show this play attitude, and then they're trying to create something with that. He said that was going to tell us that every human has a creative nature in them. It may not look like an advanced world where they create, but in Africa, yeah, we need to begin from the very standpoint, which is actually understanding the right exposure to things that would actually stimulate our mind. I believe this mind is dormant to him who has not really reasoned. That's why critical thinking actually stimulates the mind. And what stimulates the mind are things, exercises, critical thinking, acquiring knowledge. This thing stimulates the mind. So I was checking. I was reading about Jeff, and then Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men in the world right now too, and he said something. He before he retired, he gave two more rules. One of the rules which he said there was create. He said leaders create more than they actually consume. Now that's going to tell us something. Let's see. The mind is responsible for three things. Three things: imagine, create, and then plan. The creative nature is what brings about everything we have here. There is nothing on earth. There is nothing on earth. There is nothing on earth that was met on it, that was used for the development of mankind, that was met in the finished product. No. Everything was created with what man saw on it. That would tell us that God is giving human the capacity to create. So, inside of us is the power. But now, before the power comes out, it needs to go through a process. That process is what we call critical thinking and rational reasoning. And this is where it begins to think. So, now, after thinking, the mind begins to conceive ideas. And one of the things I've learned now is this. When people want to create anything, check it over time. Elon Musk never started with building a rocket to go into space. He started with different things. Now, he started with different things, and he got to a place where he realized, okay, he needed to build a rocket. He built a car, he built an electric car, he built a car that could be charged. How did he ever think it was going to be possible? Because he got himself involved in knowledge, and he studied and acquired knowledge, and so his mind was stimulated to think the impossible. So now, impossibility is what the mind is not used to. Basically, that's just what impossibility means. Impossibility is just what the mind is not used to. So when your mind is not used to something, or hasn't experienced something, or is not acquainted to a certain formula, it begins to see those things as impossible. But now when your mind is open to things that looks impossible, nothing seems impossible to you. That's just the power of the mind. So illumination is what causes the mind to expand. So now, when our minds are actually illuminated with knowledge, and the insight begins to drop there, instantly you begin to think of ideas, begin to think of what to do. But before it comes to a stage where it begins to think the impossible, you also pass through a process, and that process is what we call critical thinking, acquiring knowledge. Now, those processes are what sometimes we try to avoid. Now, for someone would say that, but in Africa we've not really built a car, we've not really been able to do this thing. And this is what I believe. I believe that we train our mind to create what we want to create. So we are responsible for what our mind intends to create. So now, what your attention is on is what your mind begins to actually think of and actually brings to reality. So when you begin to put your attention of the fact that you'll be one of the most successful person in the agricultural industry, now you begin to see things. When you see things, your mind begins to roam around those things. You begin to make research on how to make those things possible. So now you begin to think how to make things easy. That's what leaders do. Leaders think of ways to make life easy for people. How? Because of the mind is humiliated. So it begins to think that, okay, I can do this, I can do this. That mind is very powerful. So what you put your attention on is what drives your energy. So what takes your energy? So now when you put your attention on the tech sector, it's so possible. There's a high possibility that you will create inventions that will supersede the minds of other people that are surrounding you. Because your mind is not just on the normal frequency of humans. It is actually being developed. Now, I'm going to read this. So this was by von Gottel. This was a novelist and a writer and a scientist. This is what he said. He said something. He said, how can we learn self-knowledge? How can we learn self-knowledge? Never by taking thought, but rather by action. Try to do your duty and you will soon discover what you like. Now, this is not enough. The mind can conceive ideas, and the mind has the power to think of ideas and think of creative ideas. The mind is always in the state where it's able to create. Even a child, when you give it to a child and it's about how many months, let's say about a year, you begin to see when you place a child on the floor, they begin to mold. Like, when I was a child, we would play with sand, they would try to play with toys and everything. They begin to actually mold because of that creative nature is there. It can create anything as long as it's open to the right exposure. As long as it is open to the right exposure. So now when you begin to think of yourself, think of your life, what do you think you're giving your attention to? Now when you begin to think about those things, now those things begin to actually take your energy. You're taking your energy. As it's taking your energy, your mind is being stimulated. Your mind is thinking. It's at a place where it's not on the normal level as everyone's mind is, because why? It has been illuminated. So there's illumination because as a result of critical thinking, as a result of insight. Now I'm going to try to place this well. I'm a Christian, and I cannot overlook the place of spirituality, because it's there. It's real. It's spiritual, right? Now, one of the greatest inventions that ever made life easier for people were never as a result of religion. Though religion had its fine, religion is the mother of science, they say. But we will see the scientists have been the one that have created inventions that have made life easier for us. The plane, the bulb we have, these were men who conceived ideas because they were the place where their mind were illuminated, and they thought that anything was possible. Anything was possible. And I'm having this section right now to actually encourage every young person here that your mind has a capacity to create what it gives its attention to. So now, when you give your attention to whatever thing you want to do, your mind is responsible for molding that and then making it bigger. So that's why it is not possible for things to stay at a certain place for over a long period of time. So the mind is not used to stagnation. So when it's somewhere that your mind is going through a phase and a process of illumination, it's not permitted to be at a place. But now it doesn't just end there. But after those ideas have been conceived, now what is the next thing? What is the next thing? Now, there's a level at which the brain needs to be illuminated for the creative nature within man to rise at the level of nature. To rise. The man with the illuminated mind sees no possibility with what his mind can conceive and put into action. And I'm going to read that again. There is a level at which the mind needs to be illuminated for the creative nature within to rise. At this level, the man with the illuminated mind sees no possibility with what his mind can conceive and put into action. Now, the first thing, if anything will actually happen, if we're able to create things, there needs to be a form of insight, and that's a process where we young people in West Africa and Africa at large resist, because that place is what really opens our mind to creativity, illumination, the fact that something drops, and if something drops, it means that there is an opening for that thing to drop, and that's what we don't know. I am not against being spiritual, but if we start saying about spiritual things and then we're so spiritual about everything, and we're not giving room for our minds to really work and allow the fact that God has deposited that mind in us to work, we are reducing the potency of God. Because why? He is proud when he sees the children, the creatures he created, maximizing the potential at which he's placed in us. But now, if we think that we will be spiritual and then this spirituality will build invention that are rational, then it's not possible. It's not possible. Why I'm saying this is because of the mind is very powerful. Very powerful. That's what makes it different from other animals. Very powerful. Now, many times what reduces the chances of our ability to create is not the absence of the power, but our inability to awake the dominant power that is responsible for creating. This means that we need to open ourselves. We need to open the mind. We need to open the mind to believe that it's able to create. So, I made a research, and then so everyone is born with this. Everyone is born with this. And now this is it. When we engage with all this knowledge, this is what happens. When the mind creates an idea, this is a formula. ideas plus action is improvement. Consistency plus improvement results to profit and results. How does this work? The moment the mind begins to create ideas and it splits into action, what is able to make the mind make what is conceived possible? It is a process at which it has been through. So that means there are little things you will try, just like Thomas, who invented the bulb. Now, like they said, it failed. It failed 1,000 times. And I'm wondering what happened. Now that was consistency there. Consistency plus improvement. It means that he had been seeing something possible. He saw that it was possible for this to come into existence. So he kept there. So I believe we have great tech individuals in Africa. I believe we have great men in the agriculture sector that will create and invent machines that will make life easier for people. This section is not really to degrade anything, but actually increase our possibility of believing in ourselves and what has been given to us, which is the mind. So check what you're giving your mind. Check what you're giving your mind to. So where is your attention? What are you giving your attention to? When you begin to discover those moments, you begin to see what your mind can create. So now if you cannot know what you're giving your attention to, it is not possible for the mind to go through a process at which it's illuminated and then it begins to think and conceive ideas that can make life easier for people. That's really for me, it's very, very important. Very, very important. Now, the power to create has a different process that gives it the ability to create. So, the power to create, you have it, everybody is inside. But what leads us to create is different from our mind conceiving these ideas. So you can conceive those ideas and still not be able to put those things into action because of why? Your mind has not been illuminated. Capacity has not been built. Over time, if you check it, men that have invented great inventions and enterprises, they went through a process and a phase which some may call failure, but most of the men never saw themselves as failures. They saw it as processes that would open them themselves to realize different ways in actually coming about what they want to go about, or what they want to create. And I think that nature of man it's not left us yet. It's still inside. As long as the mind is still in the brain, we can still create inventions. And I believe that we are still going to the moment where Africans will rise and begin to think and give their minds the attention that it needs to create inventions that would make life better for everyone. So I visited a construction site and I saw how people were really working hard. And for me, I was marveled really that how are they working so hard? And I realized that so many times we try to go the easy way. What is the easy way? The easy way is just to work and then you're done. Another way is really to actually sit down, engage in critical thinking, let the mind grow, let the mind build capacity, let the mind conceive different ideas. But after conceiving these different ideas, put those things into action, and then I tell you, we will see how marvelous things will be. Now, let me say this. Every human achievement has come from an idea in someone's head, coupled with the actions or the actions of anyone else that got help to be that they got help from to build their goal. This means that nobody's able to achieve anything outside of the idea they conceived. Nobody went somewhere else to go and check. Maybe there wasn't another planet that people saw to go and build, to say, oh, well, we saw how we could build a plane. No, nobody went. There wasn't any planet to go and check that. Everything was all in the human mind. There is nothing that is new to the human mind. As long as we would keep increasing the capacity of the brain through elimination, through insight, through sitting down and engaging critical thinking for this mind to be illuminated, and there we would see results. You see, I said something some years back that when we suspend thinking, we suspend possibility of coming up with ideas and solutions to global problems and problems that humans are facing. Because if everything is hidden in that brain, and it would take going to the deep to actually bring out what's in the deep. So when you have a new idea, don't be afraid to put your ideas into action, solve problems, and get help from other people. That's what I believe. So let me use myself as an example. So we started Dixon Leadership to help young people actually realize their potential. So we are helping young people. Now I've given my attention to this, so it's very possible that my mind will begin to conceive ideas that would make things easier for people. So now we see improvement daily as we put ideas into action. So the moment you put ideas into action, improvement is inevitable. But now, if they would see any results, that means there needs to be consistency plus improvement, and then results begin to be so glaring and become green. So like they say, the grass can be greener where you are, where you understand the principle and the nature that governs how to make a grass greener. And I think this is what we young people need to understand, that nothing somewhere. See, how will I put it? Maybe if say let's say Thomas Edison went to space, and at the time nobody traveled to space at the time. Went to space and then he saw, oh, there was a bulb. So we could have said, okay, Thomas Edison stole the knowledge from somewhere. But now these people conceive ideas and they thought it was possible. That nature within us is very powerful, that it can change the life of any man if only they structure their mind to giving their attention to what can really bring the best out of them. So, who sees results is not the one who can conceive the idea, it's the one who can put the ideas into action and continue steering. Like Elon Musk, like we said, he never built the rocket himself, but he had to convince himself of the possibility that it is very possible to bring ideas into reality. It is possible to build an electric car. It is possible to build a car that could fly. It is very possible. Because of the mind is very powerful. And I'm having a section right now here, for everyone who's going to watch this, that believe you can conceive the ideas. Do not be restricted by the impossibility that's happening around you. Think about the leaders before us who had created and invented invention and enterprises that have benefit to us right now. How they were persistent and consistent with trying to make the ideas come to pass, and we as well, we can as well continue therein. So before that, let me read this. Okay, so okay. Okay. So, illumination causes expansion. I'm very particular about two things. If we would create ideas, there has to be a form of illumination. The mind has to experience something, has to be open. Something is to drop. So that's what really expands the brain. That's what makes the brain think of impossibility. But if you do not think it is possible, it will never be possible. So beyond that, we need to believe. And at the same time, as we believe in our ideas, we need to put them into action and ensure that we consistent with trying our best to bring those things into action. And there we can say that we're trying. There, the creative nature within man begins to rise. Let me say this. It's never possible to try something and keep trying. When you believe it, keep trying it, and it will never come to pass. It's never possible. So, if you watch this, try it, practice it, whatever field you found yourself in. Now, the thing here is this. For those in Africa, I know the system is hard. but we shouldn't give up. Men who conceived ideas of the fact that there was a possibility of flying a plane were never the one who actually built the plane. They conceived the idea, and others came up with a plan, and others carried out the ideas and the plan. So I'm saying that if you have an idea, pass it on, speak to someone. It's a possibility that whatever you're conceiving, it's possible it could come into reality. Fine, the leadership system in our nation and different nations in Africa and in also other Asian countries may not give room for us to actually be able to actually put those things out. But I believe that we should keep creating, finding ways to create. Whatever sector you find yourself, think of possible ways to make things easier. Now, I'm not saying this from head knowledge, I'm saying this from things I've done. Fine, I may not have created inventions, tech inventions, but I've been in a stage in my life where I thought of how to make things easier. And that is a creative nature. How to make things easier is what I'm talking about. And this is very important because it makes life easier for people. Sometimes I find it hard to get involved in some certain jobs, not because I can't, but because it reduces my capacity, the potential of my brain to be creative. So now I'm restricting my brain to actually adjust to a certain level which my brain is not used to. So I rather want to fly in my brain than rather restrict it to actually adjusting to mediocrity. And it's something that we need to as well cultivate, this habit of having not to settle for mediocrity, but having to settle for something that would make us feel uncomfortable. The truth is this: it is okay to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because without that, it's never possible to really create inventions that would make life better for people. And with that, I'm going to end with this. In as much as I believe we are religious beings, whether you're an African, an European, an Asian, we are religious beings. So there's something we do, there's something we believe in. But I want to say this: in as much as we believe we're spiritual, let's try and also give room for what has been given to us to have its way, just as we would actually give the way to the spirit to have its way as well. So the mind is very powerful. Begin to maximize it where you are. Think of how to create something. Create something. Create something. Just create something. Conceive an idea. When you conceive and put it into action, be consistent with it. And then you will see results. You will see results. You will see results. And I'm going to end with the quote of von Goethe. He said, how can we learn self-knowledge? That means how can we come to understand who we are and what we know and what we are capable of becoming. He said, never by taking thought, which means it's not possible to do these things by saying, oh, I'm thinking, just thinking alone. No, it doesn't work that way. And he said, rather by action. So when you think alone, it doesn't work. When you think and put them into action, it begins to produce results and begins to produce things that would make life better for people. I'm really particular about young people coming to realize that it is possible to create. Now, it will take time, yes, but it is possible. And he said, try to do your duty and you will soon discover what you are like. Means do what you can do. Try. It will take time, but try. And I hope this is going to make some people well. Whatever stage you are right now, if you're trying to create something and it's finding hard to go, keep doing it. Fine, our leaders may not really support, but I believe that keep creating, keep allowing your mind go around. You know, I spoke, so I'm going to end this here. So I spoke to a certain young man who stayed in a rural area, and I told him, young man, you don't have hope anywhere. The only hope you have is your mind. And I said, while you're here, begin to be creative and imagine and think of things. Just think of things, create things in your mind. And there, when you begin to think, your mind breaks free from every chain of old beliefs, of old imaginations. It begins to think of the impossibility. There, our thoughts begins to actually influence our actions, and our actions cannot stay when it begins to see a stimulating it to act. It will naturally act if you only can conceive and continue to create things in your mind and begin to imagine. It is very possible. And I'm very sure years back somebody thought of the fact that they wanted to fly in the air, and they said no, it was not possible. That's science. So I believe in us, and I believe young people can do this. So thank you guys for joining me. Thanks for listening to this, and I believe that we young Africans of young leaders of Africa, we can do this. And thanks very much for joining. I hope this will meet you well, and this will help someone going through a phase of their life where they think they're not able to do things. And I believe we can, if only we believe in ourselves. Thanks guys for joining, and I hope to see you guys some other time on Saturday. Bye.